Good morning and welcome to Kunsang Payo Choling. We're always happy to have you with us as we show a teaching by Jetsunma Ahkon Lhamo. This teaching this morning is entitled Bodhicitta is the Core of Dharma, and it was given in 1992. So stay with us and we'll begin now.
What I'd like to talk about now is how we can practice for so long, how we can practice on the spiritual path, and how we can practice as Buddhists, how we can practice as practitioners who have given their entire life to the practice and still miss the point. And that can happen. Believe me, it can. Particularly in this day and in this time, this time is called Kali Yuga. There are yugas, or different aeons of time that pass in a circle. Some of the times are very expansive. Some of the times are extremely degenerate and contracted. And this is the beginning of an extremely contracted and degenerate time, actually. It's a unique time in which one can achieve extraordinary result, partially by the fact that this extreme contraction makes karma ripen more swiftly and more completely and more thoroughly, and it's more in your face in a way. Characteristic of this age is the times that you have done some non-virtue and watched it ripen immediately. I think the Beatles even did a song about instant karma, didn't they? And that was like 25 years ago, 30 years ago, something like that. I don't remember. But 20 years ago, I guess. But we have this phenomena that happens at this particular time that really never happens at another time, because the fabric of our mind stream seems to be so drawn up tight, in the same way that wool would be if we washed it in extremely hot water. It becomes extremely condensed. You see what I'm saying? It almost shrinks. So Kali Yuga has that quality. Vajrayana practice, the kind of practice that is done here, actually works best under conditions like that. It's made for this time, unique in that regard. The generation and completion stage practices that, if you wish to continue, you can actually learn here, are unique and profoundly usable in this time. But this is Kali Yuga. It is an extremely degenerate time. And during this time, we have no real understanding. There is a great fog and a great delusion. And it is possible to engage in the path, to really try to engage in the path sincerely, and have several different kinds of mixed results. First of all, nowadays, due to the forces of Kali Yuga, it is extremely difficult to be the kind of practitioner that can simply receive the teaching, really take in and absorb the blessing, and then maybe go to a mountaintop retreat and simply retreat for 10, 20 years, or whatever it takes in order to accomplish the practice. You can do that, but it's extremely difficult to do. The conditions are such that is extremely difficult to do. In this society in particular, one cannot find such an opportunity. Even when we take the path, we say, well, how much can I do on the time that I have? I have a family, I have a job, I have this and that kind of different concern, and they're all realistic. And the way it's set up in such a weird way, is that if we abandon those tasks that we have, those responsibilities that we have, we would actually be accumulating non-virtue in a sense. You see, we actually have these responsibilities. So we have something like a dichotomy, and many of us have experienced that. And even in the places where such practice is engaged in a very profound and overwhelming way, it seems as though it becomes more and more difficult to accomplish practice in that way. It is difficult to achieve the opportunity, and once having achieved the opportunity, it is more difficult to achieve the result. But the interesting thing about Vajrayana practice is that of all the kinds of practice that one can do at this time, one can achieve the ultimate result. So how is it that we can sit here in this land of milk and honey where even though we don't believe this, we can set it up where we have the leisure to practice? Oh, yes, you can. Yes, you can. You can reprogram your wonderful, creative little minds who have created such wonderful and marvelous excuses not to practice. You can simply reprogram them, and you can create the leisure to practice. You do have the leisure to practice. This realm is known for that. The human realm is known for that. In the other realms, there is not the leisure to practice. If one were to think about the hungry ghost realm, which is a realm of great greed and grasping, or the hell realms, the hellish realms, the suffering is so great in those realms that it's as though you were trying to practice while someone were cutting your flesh. You couldn't do it. The mind would be too tightly concerned with its pain. You see what I'm saying? There would be no leisure to practice, no actual time to practice. But as a human being, there is leisure to practice, there is time to practice. And that time to practice is innate within our mind streams. It is there. The capability for that, the seed for that is actually there. So we have that time, and we have the opportunity. Here we have a place where Dharma is available. It is available in a pure form. It has not been broken since the time it was originally delivered. When you receive transmissions, they are pure transmissions, unbroken from student to teacher. When you receive commentary here in this temple, it is done in such a way that your language is spoken. It is spoken in a modern way. It is geared toward the way you receive information. And so therefore, you can receive the information. You speak the same language. And the display of this information coming to you happens in such a way that it is familiar to you. One doesn't block oneself off from it. It is not shocking or unusual or too exotic. It comes to you in a very ordinary way. And so it's like a baby receiving food that is pre-digested in a sense. You know, you can eat that. It's already softened for you, even if you don't have your teeth yet. It's already softened for you. You know how to do that. It's in the same way that a baby can be nourished by, milk and cereal mixed together, but not by meat, that it's hard to chew. In the same way, you're receiving that teaching with that kind of benefit. So, wonderful auspicious circumstances are here. You're in a land where the Dharma is being taught. All of your faculties are complete. You have what you need. You're here. You have what you need to practice Dharma. And yet, somehow, we miss the point. What is the point? Well, see, this is where we miss it, because nobody's really asked themselves that. What is the point? When we come to Dharma, sometimes we have some interesting ideas like, I'm a great being already. Let me see if I can make myself greater. Or, I'd like to be spiritual. I think it would be a great thing to be spiritual. I think it would be a wonderful gig to be spiritual. I mean, wouldn't it be great to walk around the world and say, I'm spiritual? You know what I'm saying? Do you recognize any of those inner postures, those wonderful inner postures that sometimes we have when we first move onto the path? It's kind of like a baby dressing up in its parents' clothing. It's a very immature kind of babyish posture. And we have this idea about how we have such extraordinary exotic potential and blah, 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 yada, yada. None of those kinds of ideas or anything even closely related to that will ever produce result. Here's what will happen. If you set your foot on the path trying to be a great being, That's exactly what you will be. And you know what a great being is? It's another kind of being. It is a being who is lost in samsara, completely deluded, unable to escape, clinging to their ego. Well, of course, they've inflated their ego, so it's a big ego. As egos go, it's probably, on the market, exchangeable for maybe 3 or 4 smaller egos. And in fact, under those conditions, that's what people like that do. They usually gather around a few smaller people that they can dominate. There's the kind of strange interplay that happens there, and it's a deluded interplay. But that is useless. It's a joke. It's a joke. And in fact, it's pathetic. So, when one enters onto the path, one should not have that kind of ideal. One should not think like that. Neither should one think that the great thing to do with life would be to be spiritual. Because there again, there's that idea of being something and clinging something and putting on clothing, donning a costume, moving through a drama with a costume on. You see? And with that kind of activity, what result can be made? There is only the result of faking, of acting. And one cannot actually have the heart, the meat, the experience of Dharma, of one's practice, under those conditions. One is an actor, kind of a vapid experience, moving through time, demonstrating one's ignorance in a dance. So difficult to watch someone do that. All of those different elements, when one enters the path, have within them some poison which, like the keys dropping, must ripen according to the seed. The fruit must be according to the seed. It never varies. If you set out with some sort of poison, diluted thing in the mind on the path, that will be the result. Unshakable. You drop them, they go down. And so one can really apply oneself to practice. One can really work very hard, do lots of mantras every day, and miss the whole point. Miss the boat entirely. And let me tell you something about Dharma. Dharma is like shooting for the moon. It's like shooting for Pluto. It's like shooting for way far away, so far away, that when you're down on earth taking aim, you can't be, I don't even know the small words, the words that micro-millisection or something, I don't know what those words are to indicate how right on your aim has to be. But you can't be the tiniest fraction, the most indescribably tiny fraction of time or space off. That seed has to be ace. And so on this path we are first taught the real motivation for accomplishing Dharma. And that is to achieve selflessly, without any regard for oneself, or how one looks, or how one appears, or how one seems to be, or how magnificent one is, or anything like that. One has to wish to accomplish, without hesitation, the liberation and salvation of all sentient beings, thinking nothing of oneself. Nothing of, hey, I'm a great teacher now, or, gee, as a teacher I wish I could look like this, or maybe I'd like to look like that, or let's see, how am I going to style myself? You know? One should never think like that. As a bodhisattva, as one who practices, one should never think of how that's going to manifest. Well, what kind of costume is that going to wear? Where's the heart of that? Like that. One should think only of liberating and benefiting sentient beings. When the teachers come to give teachings, they, especially some sort of empowerment, they will always say, now let us accomplish the proper motivation. And what happens to the students is they And this was pointed out to me this morning, actually, by one of my students, which is actually a very good point, that most of the time the students say, oh yeah, here's the part where they say that, and they kind of blow right through it. They're so used to hearing, all right, now let's establish the proper motivation, that they don't take that seriously. They go, oh yeah, that's the thing that you have to do before you get the wang. It's kind of like the token you have to pay. And sometimes even if they do it, they say, oh yeah, I'm establishing, okay, right, now I've done that now. It's a very empty and vapid experience, while it should be the deepest experience that you have the whole day. That experience of establishing the mind of bodhicitta, or the pure intention, which is to liberate and cause salvation for all sentient beings, that experience should be the experience. That should be the one. And the absorption in that produces the result. It produces the result. In the same way, on the path, you can do mantras out the wazoo, so many mantras. You can achieve every possible empowerment. You can read, you can study, you can do all the things that achieve merit. All of the things that talked to the children about this morning. Circumambulate the stupa, you can make tsatsas, you can whatever it is that you can think of to do that is virtuous activity, make offerings, all those things. Whatever it is that you do, you can do those from morning to night. But if you do not establish the bodhicitta, if you do not establish the mind of compassionate intention, the miraculous mind of enlightened capacity through pure intention, you have nothing. You have nothing. You're a shell of a practitioner. And speaking for myself, I know that I would be a shell of a teacher if I did not have pure intention. And that need to examine yourself thoroughly and in the mode of taking no prisoners, ruthlessly examining yourself, must happen from the time you first become a practitioner till the moment that you actually achieve the rainbow body and everybody knows that you've got the big picture. Till that moment. And then when you return again to benefit sentient beings after having achieved miraculous signs, you should thoroughly examine yourself again. It should never end. Never. The haughtiness, the arrogance with which we practice the path, they are despicable. And we should not allow that in our mind streams. We should, in a humble and gorgeous way, gorgeous because it's like a jewel, so fragrant and so precious. I mean, when your teacher sees you accomplish this bodhicitta, it's like fragrant and beautiful and precious. It's like nothing in this world. We should display this gorgeous, fragrant blooming of bodhicitta arising naturally within the mind stream, that one considers only the benefit of sentient beings, only that. Interestingly, practitioners think that they can fool somebody, that we're going to act like we're real holy and we're going to look like we're standing on top of a mountain with the big picture, and that somehow everybody's going to believe us. Well, some deluded people will believe you, but not all, and certainly not the teachers, the ones that are qualified to look at those things. Not for a minute. It's like the emperor with his new clothes, it really shows. You really look silly. Really silly. And so, what we have to do is to take ourselves to the depth of our heart, from our deepest practice to the depth, and really accomplish that arising of the bodhicitta. Traditionally, we are taught lots of things about bodhicitta. We are taught that there is temporary, or relative, I should say, and ultimate bodhicitta. Relative bodhicitta, or relative compassion, is that compassion that one can accomplish as a human being. It's very simply put. One can accomplish as a human being, even if it's extraordinary, even if it seems to be amazing. Like, for instance, if I were to feed all the people in India from now until the time that they're all fed, until the end of their lives. Wouldn't that seem like extraordinary compassion? If I took all my money and did that, if I had that much money, if I took all my money and did that, that would seem extraordinary. But actually, that's relative or ordinary compassion. And the reason why is that one can do that with one's body, speech, and mind as they exist now. One can use finite supply. One can use this stuff, this world, this environment, and one's skills in order to do that. It can be done. It actually can be done. So that's pretty ordinary. And the other reason why it's ordinary is because it will only produce an ordinary result. What's it going to produce? Full stomachs. It's going to produce full stomachs. Of course, that's good, especially for those people that are starving. They need that. They're desperate for it. They hurt. They really hurt, and they require that. And so I encourage you, and on the path we are encouraged to accomplish ordinary or relative bodhicitta. We must, to the extent of our ability, accomplish ordinary or relative bodhicitta because they are hungry. And that's the reason. But there is another kind of bodhicitta that is called supreme or extraordinary, ultimate bodhicitta. Ultimate bodhicitta. And this bodhicitta is different, actually. In this case, one cannot achieve this bodhicitta through ordinary means. One cannot just set out and say, I think I'll do this today. It takes much more than that, different components that are supernatural or extraordinary. To accomplish the ultimate bodhicitta, one must become Buddha. One must become Buddha. Period. That's it. Nothing less. And in order to do that, one must have the root guru, one must have the Buddha's teaching, one must have the Dharma, one must have the Sangha, or spiritual community. Only those teachings that actually arise from the mind of enlightenment and are not made up by some person who decided they were going to make up a teaching this life. Only those teachings can produce the ultimate result, that have produced enlightenment again and again and again. So you need those extraordinary things, and they don't come easily. One has to have achieved merit over a great long period of time for those teachings to appear in one's life, for that extraordinary circumstance to appear in one's life. And this achieving of Buddhahood produces the extraordinary result, the result that no other cause can produce. Because as a Buddha, we can help to bring about the liberation and salvation of all sentient beings. And even approaching Buddhahood, as we achieve bodhisattvahood, as we actually achieve the awakening mind and move closer and closer through the levels of realization toward Buddhahood, it is actually true that one can consciously reincarnate even under those conditions to achieve the liberation and salvation of all sentient beings. That can actually happen. Of course, meeting with the path in a faithful and true way each time. So that can happen. The extraordinary result is that sentient beings are liberated from the true cause of their suffering. Now, to reflect back to the ordinary stuff that we were talking about, the true cause of their suffering is not hunger. The true cause of their suffering is actually negative karma. And so they need to be freed from negative karma. They need to learn how to pacify negative karma. They need to actually key into a technology that produces that extraordinary result. They need to be liberated from that. And as one can only be liberated from negative karma by learning the technology of the path, then one has to be able to give that to sentient beings in order to cause their liberation. Plus, as a highly realized bodhisattva or a Buddha, one can actually confer an actual blessing that brings about the optimum result in the student. Now, only in that way can that result actually be brought about. On the path, we think that we know that our teachers, our gurus, who are called our root gurus, actually give a transmission or a blessing to the mind that causes the mind to be deepened, and we receive empowerment, traditional empowerment, and that empowerment is the way to ripen the seeds of the display, the generation of the display of the pure primordial wisdom nature within our mind streams. It actually ripens those seeds, those capacities, and that is how they are ripened in this time. So that must be accomplished. Of course, bodhisattvas can appear in many ways, but you will know them by their selflessness, by their lack of being impressed with themselves, their lack of haughtiness and arrogance, their lack of feeling as though they've got the straight dope, the straight answer, without ever really receiving the teaching in a proper or qualified way. And then there are those bodhisattvas that simply act in a very simple, unknown way. They demand no recognition, they want no recognition, they move through life simply offering blessing to sentient beings in a very humble and unnoticeable, invisible way. There are those. But it is those ones, those bodhisattvas, those Buddhas, who appear in the world, who are the net of compassion. They are the actual display or emanation or appearance of the primordial wisdom nature, which is indistinguishable from your nature. Indistinguishable from your nature. You're not separate from that. Indistinguishable. That is the appearance in the world. And so when we meet with these teachers or these who can confer some blessing, we are actually meeting our own face, our own nature. But it is their great compassion that is the golden key, that is the precious jewel that brings about the real change. And it is by their compassion that accomplishment has occurred, not through being a great being, not through fluffing up one's peacock feathers, not through strutting, not through a gathering together facts, knowing some about this and some about that and some about that. That is not the accomplishment. Do not be duped. Do not be duped in your own practice, and do not be duped by anybody else. It is the bodhicitta that is the accomplishment. That is the accomplishment. It is compassion. There is no other compassion. And if you try to accomplish the path without that, your method and your result is flawed. It is faulted, and it will not benefit any other. Not benefit any other. That is the one thing that I know for sure and that I can tell you. Yet it is possible to practice all this time and miss the point entirely and not even know that you have missed the point. Somehow the delusion is so thick that you don't see it. You don't see your arrogance. You don't see your haughtiness. You just don't see it. And that's a real suffering. But I can tell you what you can do to help yourself. What you can do to help yourself right now, in preparation for really accepting the path, or while on the path, in order to ensure that you can at some time be of some benefit to somebody, real benefit. You can practice the bodhicitta to such a degree that it is really, it's like the basket of your mind, like there's nothing else in your mind. And the one way to do that effectively, it's not through getting a good feeling. See, people mistake bodhicitta for emotions. It's not through saying, oh yes, I really like that, definitely I want to benefit sentient beings, I'm so meaningful about this, and I'm just like, wow, you know, I'm really cool about this, no kidding, I really have the feeling, and I really want to benefit sentient beings. And people kind of mistake that kind of emotionalism, or the feeling that one has when one goes, oh yes, yes, I see it now. I want to benefit sentient beings. Or some craziness like that, or even the crying, you know. I was told yesterday that there is a Rinpoche in Nepal that I know of and I feel a good connection with and have great respect for, called Choki Nyingma Rinpoche. And he's a wonderful Rinpoche. And he said that kind of crying like that is pee-pee. And it is. I couldn't have said it better. I couldn't have said it better. It is pee-pee. And all you are doing when you do that emotional baloney about how wonderful everything is and how great compassion is and how marvelous the path is and I'm having a meaningful experience now, watch me. That's pee-pee. You are making the rug wet. And all you have is a big house with a very stained rug. So, rather than making pee-pee, how about getting the good point, the real point? One actually practices bodhicitta in this way. One actually practices bodhicitta by examining the faults of cyclic existence. Let's say that you were sort of egotistical. Let's say that you were arrogant. Let's say that you made more of yourself than you actually are. Let's say this. Let's say that you committed the most heinous crime of all. Do you know what the most heinous crime of all is, according to the Buddha? Representing yourself as a higher spiritual being than you actually are. The most heinous crime. Man, I have to tell you, that one scares the patooties out of me. I mean, that one scares the... I'm telling you, that scares me so much, it's like I have to go to the bathroom when I even think about it. I'm terrified of that. I am terrified of that. So, and in my life that could happen, you see, because people say to me, wow, you were recognized as Ahkon Lhamo. Wow, you have this paper from the head of your lineage that says you were recognized as the first incarnate Lama female in America ever, and probably for a long time to come, who knows? And wow, isn't that great? What do you feel like when you sit on that throne they made for you? What's it like when you have your crown on? Wow, what's it really feel like, you know? Don't you see where there's lots of room for stuff like that? You know what my response always is? Hey, I don't know nothing about this. I'm from Brooklyn. What do I know? People from Brooklyn don't know nothing. So I'm from Brooklyn, and basically what I know is my root guru came over from India. Somehow he found me in Kensington, Maryland, can you believe this, and ate hot dogs out in the backyard with me and started to tell me all this stuff about myself. And pretty soon he did this. And that's what I know. And I know that he is the highest, that he is the Buddha, that he is everything, that he is the door of liberation. And due to that, if he says that, I must believe it. But that's all I know. That's what I say. Because I am afraid of that heinous crime. Terrified of it. Just morally fearful of it. So let's say that you commit that heinous crime. And let's say that you put yourself in a high place. Let's say that you make claims and fabricate experiences. Let's say that you display yourself as being more than you really actually are. For a time, that will produce good result. So it seems. You know why? Because if you have enough charisma, if you're slick enough about it, you may get some people to come to you. You know what I'm saying? It happens, doesn't it? Haven't you seen it happen in the world? Haven't you seen that in America and in the world, the spiritual supermarket is like filled with baloney? You know what I'm saying? So it happens. It really happens. And let's say that you gather some students to you, and maybe the students give you a little money, and maybe they set you up real nice, and yeah, maybe for a while you kind of cruise with that. And it can seem kind of nice. Maybe you get some notice. Maybe you have meaningful experiences, and those meaningful experiences kind of puff you up a little bit. Those ones that you can make up just as easily as you can make up chronic depression and things like that. Those meaningful experiences, let's say you have a few of those. Well, for a while, you're going to delude yourself, and that's going to be your suffering. Those wonderful experiences that you're having due to that activity, those will actually be your suffering. Because they will delude you and they will fool you. And you won't realize that eventually you will fall. You have to fall. Just like that. Boom. Because you dropped the ball big time. You dropped it. And eventually you will suffer badly. You will either lose the capacity to generate bodhicitta, lose all trace of your miraculous intention, or the potential for miraculous intention at the time it's not really miraculous yet. You can lose the path. You can lose the opportunity to hook up with the source of your strength, your own root guru, who is the display of your face in the world. You can lose the opportunity to achieve the result. You can break the connection, break the opportunity, and go around the cycle of death and rebirth again with all of its faults. And that can really happen. And it does happen. It does happen. I'm afraid of that. I don't wish for that to happen. And I don't wish for that to happen to any practitioner, because it can happen to a teacher, it can happen to a practitioner. The cornerstone of one's practice must be the bodhicitta. Even if you sit on a mountaintop somewhere and meditate until you feel real good, thinking that you just have it, thinking that you are just some kind of holy, thinking that you have pacified all the BS that has arisen in your mind, feeling kind of righteous about yourself because you know how to sit out in the woods somewhere. Even if you do that, if you haven't the bodhicitta, you have nothing. You have nothing. The Buddha teaches us clearly it is the cornerstone of the path. And let me tell you, you can make mudras, and you can do fancy things, and you can sit in wonderful spiritual positions, and you can do all kinds of stuff. But if you do not have as your sole concern the liberation and salvation of all sentient beings, with no concern as to how you appear, so that you're willing to look, to act, to think as is appropriate for the particular culture in which you appear, and have no other concern, you have nothing. Nothing. Now it sounds like I'm talking to those people who are thinking about being teachers, doesn't it? What about those of us that are just starting, we're just practicing, we're just trying to get a foot in the door? Actually, that's most of us. Maybe that's all of us. What do you think? I'm thinking about Trilly Norba Rinpoche, who to me is like, what are the words? How can I say? He is, I don't have it like awesome. I'm stuttering. I don't have the words to say what he is. Amazing, amazing. I think about him and what he said to me one day. He said, well, I asked him for some nature of mind teaching. He said, sure, I'll give it to you, but I don't really know much about Dharma yet. And just like, it was so good for me to hear that. So good for me to hear that purity and humility. I don't know much yet. And I think that he is like a Mahasiddha. He's like so amazing. So those of us that are just trying to get a foot in the door, just beginning on the path, stay pure. And the only way to stay pure is through bodhicitta. And the only way to practice bodhicitta is through examining the faults of cyclic existence. You must see for yourself where the non-virtuous activity is going to lead you. You have to see that the key is going to fall. It's going to fall. You have to see that if you set yourself up in a high place, you're going to go down. You have to see that if you're selfish, you're going to be alone. You have to see that if you are hateful, you're going to experience war-like circumstances. You have to see that if you are angry, that you are going to experience hellish circumstances. You have to see that if you are experiencing great greed and desire, that you are going to suffer from lack. You must understand the faults of cyclic existence. And then look around you, open your eyes, look around you, look at other sentient beings. They do not understand those things. There are babies in the high chair still trying to understand what happens when you throw the stuff down. And no one picks it up for them because they haven't even met their teacher yet. They have nothing. So you look around at them and you think, my gosh, I have to do something. I have to do something. These poor babies are sitting there in the high chair. Their food's all thrown down on the floor. They can't understand why they can't eat. They have nothing to eat. They're hungry. They've got shit in their pants. No one's there to change them. My gosh, what can I do? You have to think like that. Therefore, I will practice and I will accomplish in order to benefit sentient beings. I will be relentless in my pursuit of purity, relentless in my demand that within my mind the bodhicitta naturally arise. Now, as a closing thought, we think that bodhicitta is some kind of external thing, that it's out there somewhere. You know, some rules about compassion that we like take in and internalize. On the most superficial level, it's presented in that way. Bodhicitta is thought to be the great kindness, the great realization of kindness. Yet that is not the true understanding of bodhicitta. That is actually not the true understanding of bodhicitta. When one is taught the most profound teachings about the primordial wisdom nature, and in fact, one has to learn that experientially through one's practice, and the teachings go along with practice, so it cannot really be spoken of. If it is spoken of, it's like seeing a picture of space. If you've not been in space, you cannot understand a picture of space. It looks like nothing. And one sees only a flat image of nothingness. You see what I'm saying? One cannot understand it that way. So one can only receive some very small description of the primordial wisdom nature. But when one hears about the primordial wisdom nature, one understands that it is pristine, clear, luminous, uncontrived, naturally free of distinction. Any distinction such as this and that, self and other, high and low, up and down. It is the uncontrived, luminous, naturally awakened, naturally rising, and spontaneously accomplished primordial wisdom state. That is the nature. All that we see and all that we are is actually a display of that nature. Everything from this water to this plant, even though I think it's silk. Anyway, all of it. You, me, even subtle things like thought, even those things, the basis of all things that appear is that primordial wisdom nature. That primordial wisdom nature is neither stop nor go, neither still nor movement, neither empty nor full, but all that. Therefore, it is indistinguishably, in a non-dual way, both the clear luminosity of the empty state and the movement or display or dance of the emanation or appearance. The primordial wisdom nature and the appearance are completely mated. The miraculous appearance, the primordial wisdom nature are completely mated. In their nature, they cannot be separated. Yet in our confusion, we mistake the display for something separate. The primordial wisdom nature in its empty state is the view, is emptiness. The primordial wisdom nature in its emanation or display state is the great bodhicitta. Bodhicitta is indistinguishable from the primordial wisdom nature. They are married. More than married, they are indistinguishable. You cannot take them apart. There's no them to take apart. It is only our words. No separation. Not a trace, not a hint. Neither empty nor full, neither still nor moving. That nature is the great bodhicitta. And that is your nature. So that when you act in a pure way, when you purify the defilement of arrogance, hatred, greed, ignorance, pride, all of that, the nature naturally displays itself. Naturally displays itself. Like a jewel that at last has had all the mud washed off of it. That is the view. That is the nature. And there's only one way to achieve that result of really displaying that precious jewel that is your nature. And that is really through using the technology to purify those defilements that hide it. Those confusions, those misconceptions, and so forth that hide it. And so that is what we must accomplish. And any other method, such as trying to be this and trying to be that, trying to show oneself off, trying to get this thing and know this fact. I see so many students do so many mantras and they read lots of books and they got lots of stuff. They collect Dharma like you collect shoes. You know? They're just materialistic about it, you know? I got a bunch of stuff here. That's not the way. It's not the way. You miss the main point. And again, in closing, only you can be responsible for that. I can give you the look that tells me I'm thinking about you when I say this. I can force it down your throat, try to. But you know, you're just going to spit it back up. Only you know how to swallow. Only you can accept that. Only you can really go for it. Only you can examine yourself honestly and see what you've got there. Only you can be willing to go through the hardship of really looking at yourself honestly. You have to not like what you see because you're not enlightened yet, you see? So you have to go for that. Take no prisoners. Be ruthless. Courageous. Courage is the most important thing here. Courage. Courage not to wait. And most of all, the courage to love that much. So hard to accomplish. And so natural for you once you purify all those defilements.
So thank you so much for joining with us today. And we're always glad to be participating in these teachings. And so here we are. It's Sunday, and we're on YouTube. And we are also on Wednesday evenings at 7:30 p.m. So both days are we offer the pre-recorded teachings of Jetsunma, and you can also find them archived on YouTube itself. We're slowly getting them straightened out there, but anyway, there we are. Let's see. We also offer meditations on Saturdays and Sundays at 10 a.m. Offered by one of our nuns. We also have Medicine Buddha on Facebook. which is a short, very short practice every evening at 7 p.m. And that's offered up for people to, engage in and practice and offer prayers for those that they are thinking about and worried about at that time. So join in and you can get some help with those prayers. Every day there's a silk offering, which is a food offering ceremony. Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday, it's at 5:30. Thursday at 5 p.m. These are on Zoom. All of them, not all of them except Sunday. Saturdays is at noon. The Sunday one is on YouTube it's on Facebook Live when we're able to do that. And because it's live outside at the Guru Rinpoche statue whenever the weather permits, and there's not so much internet there. So that's our best choice. Also following that on Sundays at 4 p.m. is a drum circle out there. It's not online, but if you're in the area, come and join in. It's great. We're drumming for rain for all around the world, for all those places that are suffering severe drought. And you wouldn't think so, because boy, when the storms come, they're really killers. But the drought is really impacting so many people, and we're trying to help alleviate that if we can. So join with us. The temple is open every day, 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. In the prayer room. You just can come around to the south door, which is behind the temple, and come on in and, pray, meditate, whatever you wish. Even if there's a practice or something going on, you are welcome. So just come. It's open. And we're thrilled to have you come. Let's say that's the main features of the practice schedule, but there's so much else going on here. There are animals, there are just lots and lots of gardening, lots and lots of trails and statues and stupas and places to walk and places to just relax and enjoy yourself. Somehow I did do an attempt at this. I can't seem to get my chat up. So let me just tell you that if you want to make an offering to Jetsunma, you can do so. There is a PayPal email that she uses, which is jetsunmagift@gmail.com. JETSUNMAGIFT@gmail.com. And you can make an offering to her directly for having received a teaching. And it helps to, increase your connection with her personally. So for the temple, you can go on tara.org and find out everything I just told you and all of the things that are happening here. There's a calendar, and the easiest way to find out and to join in on any of these practices is to go to that calendar, and it's under Meditate, Pray, Study, and in a couple of places. And you just go and you click on the event you want to go to, and it'll tell you where is it online and in a vast array of social media platforms. Where is it and how do you get there? What are the codes? And also there's a link to download the practice if you want to join in. We're happy to have you at all times. If you have any questions, kpc@tara.org is where you go. So thanks again. Thanks so much. We'll see you Wednesday. Take care.